All right, now returning to Tennis Channel Inside In. Always delighted to have him on the show. It's been a year since we talked. Former #1 doubles player in the world. He's won the Roland Garros title, an Olympic silver medalist now, so we got to catch up about that. And we'll be representing Team USA in the Davis Cup Finals in Malaga, Spain, November 19th to 24th here on Tennis Channel. Austin Krajicek, welcome back to the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been about a year since we talked pre-US Open. A lot has happened in that time that I want to get to. Starting off with this, you enter the US Open, you make that semifinal run, but you got the #1 ranking back at the time. It was good. You got it for the second time in your career. So what was that experience like going into there with some pressure? Ultimately, you didn't win the title, but had a successful year and got that top spot back.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, obviously, semifinals is a great result. There's no doubt about that. But at the time we were a little bit disappointed. It's been a dream, still a huge goal of mine to win the home slam here in the US, in New York. So, that's definitely a goal moving forward. But to get the #1 spot back that week was a great feeling. And then, of course, to end the year last year, #1 was also even better. So, yeah, it started there in New York to get it back the second time. So, I think we were definitely a positive experience. Then also being able to get the mixed finals as well. Disappointing finish there in the finals, but to make a finals of a slam is a tremendous honor. So, I think overall it was a fantastic couple weeks there in New York.
You guys have the Davis Cup coming up, so the season isn't quite over. But my curious question as a tennis player with this season, we've talked about how long it is. There's so many ups and downs. The off season's so short. But when do you focus on, recapping your year and looking at the good and the bad? Is it kind of immediately when the season ends, or do you take some time to unplug and then ultimately reflect a little bit?
Yeah, like you said, it's a pretty nonstop season. So, when we do finish, whenever that is, late November, if you have a good season in Turin and hopefully Davis Cup, then you get maybe a week to shut it down and rest a little bit, tops, and then you got to start practicing because we actually have to leave this year Christmas Day, so it's even a little bit of a shorter off season than depending on obviously the schedule you pick in Australia. It can be even shorter than normal. So I think you get a few days there just to decompress, and then I think as you're home for a couple weeks in a row, you start to recap, and then think back on some of the things you did well that year, and then of
Yeah,
course a lot of the focus is on what you can do better than next year, and try to build
right.
on it from there.
Right. A lot of the focus on your year, and not just yours, but tennis in general, was having the Olympics. And just how unique was it? Not only anytime there's an Olympic year, but also the surface. You're going grass to clay and then back to hard court. So, how just unique was that from a tennis experience?
Yeah, it was an extremely unique year. I think schedule-wise, it was an absolute disaster, really. Anytime I get to play with a flag on my shirt, it's an absolute no-brainer for me that I'm going to compete and play. So, playing my first Olympics in Tokyo, that was obviously the COVID era there. So, some weird dynamics there with no fans and COVID testing every day, which was a real pain in the butt. So to have a normal Olympic experience was super special. But like you said, it was very difficult because we went from a long clay season, finishing at Roland Garros, which is one of my favorite tournaments, the cities to compete in, to the grass, and then to come immediately back. We actually extended our stretch over there a little bit longer because we stayed. Rajiv and I played Hamburg post Wimbledon, so we kind of stayed for an extra. Really, it turned out to be an extra 2.5 weeks before
Right.
the Paris Olympics. So it really extended our Europe season, which is already extremely long, another month or even a little bit longer, and then pushed you directly into the hard court season. So
Yeah.
not just
Mhm.
physically difficult, obviously, with the surface change and trying not to get injured. I think mentally, even more so, as you're
Yeah.
completely burned out by the end of the summer.
And there's a lot of players that, and there's no right or wrong answer, but some players just, quite frankly, put patriotism and put their playing for their country a little higher than others. And I know you're kind of one of those players, but there's a sacrifice in that, right? We even saw it with a guy like Dan Evans playing with Andy Murray in the Olympics in doubles. And, did you feel like you had to kind of just prioritize things a little differently and maybe put country ahead a little bit of some of these other tournaments where ranking and prize money were even available?
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely
Yeah.
in those events. You're playing just for the love of the country and the love of the sport, to try to play for something bigger than yourself. And I think tennis is also unique because there's not many times that you get to play for a team. So in college, you have
Mhm.
that. Played at
Mhm.
A&M, so you get that feeling a bit in college, and then after that, it's really just Davis Cup. And to be honest, Olympics was always a goal of mine, but maybe something at that time that I wasn't really even
Mhm.
thinking that was possible. So, that wasn't really on my radar at that point in time when I finished school. So, it was a no-brainer for me. There's no chance that
Yeah,
I'm missing it. If I can get in, I'm going to play.
yeah,
And for me, some of the best memories I've had in my career have always been in the team aspect,
yeah.
playing for the United States,
Mhm.
or playing for Texas A&M for a while. So,
Yeah,
any team aspect we can get,
yeah.
I jump at it.
And you mentioned, Austin, the different Olympic experience, not the COVID bubble that Tokyo had, 2021, Paris, unique. So, starting with that, what was the opening ceremony like? The boat ride
Yeah.
through. I mean, we were watching it on TV and we were like, this is bringing back memories of centuries past. But what was that experience like on the opening ceremony?
I hate to blow up the question there, but I was
Yeah.
actually watching it on TV as well.
Ah, okay.
So you have the choice, and tennis is a unique sport because you start, or not unique, but it's one of the sports that starts very early. So the next day you could technically have to play. So at the time that we would have had to decide to go to the opening ceremony, we didn't know if we were playing the next day or not. And it was a lot of standing. And to be honest, I had a massive blister on my heel,
Yeah.
kind of the practice week leading up. So I was a little bit concerned about that. And the polo shoes, which were nice, were not the nicest on your feet. So,
Yeah.
it would have been a lot of standing. And then we
Right.
obviously saw the weather forecast was going to be pretty
Right.
difficult. So watching that on TV, we would have had to be at the village, I think at noon, and the boat didn't
That,
leave until 9 o'clock. So you're there for,
yeah.
it would have been a 12-hour experience in the rain with
Yeah.
possibly playing a match the next day. And obviously a huge goal of ours for the previous 2 years was for Raj and I to get a medal.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we wanted to get the gold medal, but
Yeah.
so we kind of
Hmm.
put our
Right.
playing first there and didn't actually go.
Well, you stayed dry. That's, I guess, more
We did.
important. And yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, you made the right call, and unfortunately, you weren't able to have your nice lotto shoes on. You had the polo ones instead.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but
exactly.
at the same time, you bring up a point, right? Like we take for granted, like the Olympics literally start for some athletes like yourself the very next day. So not everyone gets to kind of experience the spoils of just celebrating and doing the opening ceremonies. But still, in that same vein, Austin, you're able to kind of mingle a little bit and just interact with other athletes, which was not on the table in Tokyo. So I'm sure that was a positive vibe as well.
Yeah, super special. We got to meet some athletes, and actually a few guys
Hmm.
came out, kind of from the opening
Hmm.
ceremony. Wyndham Clark did a little bit before, actually watching some of the tennis. One of those days was really cool to meet him and chat with him
Hmm.
about the different approach to the sport they take, and
Hmm.
so it was really cool, and it's a unique experience there as well because all the athletes,
Hmm.
if you're on the Olympic team, you're obviously one of the best in the world at your sport. So the guys are just a little bit more open and friendly, and willing to chat,
Yeah.
which in a normal
Hmm.
situation, if you approach some of these guys at their event or
Yeah.
on the street, they're not going to give
Yeah.
maybe they're not going to give you the time of day, but in that scenario, we have some street cred with some of the
Yeah.
USA gear.
Did you get to watch any other sports? I know the schedule's pretty full, but did you get to see any other sports?
Unfortunately, didn't. We did
Mhm,
watch a lot on TV
mhm,
just in the hotel room,
mhm,
but
mhm,
we couldn't. Security was
mhm.
super tight, which obviously is a great thing and needed there in Paris, but it was difficult to get around. We did have matches kind of almost every other day, and we had a stretch where there was a little bit of rain, so we played back-to-back matches a bunch of days, and we actually didn't have any time to make it out,
Yeah,
which was a real bummer because that was something that I was looking forward to doing.
yeah. I know that like tennis players are used to this. Maybe not other Olympic athletes, but you start right away, and it could be one and done. So it's a great Olympic experience. You work very hard to earn the team, get on the team, but then ultimately one loss and you're going home. Does that pressure kind of? Are you comfortable, should I say, with that kind of experience and pressure where it all comes down to really one match?
You're right. I mean, that's one of the kind of annoying things about tennis is it's like you said, we're
Yeah,
prepared for that
yeah,
because that's literally how our life is every week.
yeah,
It's a pretty miserable way to be sometimes. But
yeah.
we're prepared for that, and I think we just try to put our best tennis forward there, and we're fortunate enough to get off to a really good start and play a great match against Australia
Mhm,
that first day, and I think you can kind
mhm.
of build on that momentum. But it does really open your eyes to the difficulty of some of the sports that are mainly Olympic sports, and they're training 4 years or many years to get the one opportunity, and anything can happen. You could eat something off, you could get a cold, there's so many things traveling with jet lag
Mhm.
and how you sleep the night before, obviously with the nerves. It really makes you appreciate how difficult that those sports are where, hey, you've got one chance at 4 years and you got to perform, or you got to wait another 4 years. It's absolutely crazy.
It is so crazy. It for sure is. And if you look at, your partnerships and you play with a few, but what is it like playing with Rajeev Ram, another American that got to number one, a veteran in the sport? You can even say he's a veteran too. But what's it like, and what does he bring to you as a partner, and why were you able to gel so much?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we've had a lot of experience playing together over the years. I think a big aspect that helps a lot is that we're really good friends off the court, and we've
Hmm.
known each other for 20. I hate to say how long, 20 years or even a little bit longer. So when you get that kind of familiarity with someone on the court and off the court, it's easy to kind of match your practice styles and how you compete in matches. So I think we've had some good events years ago that prepared us for that. And then the last
Hmm.
couple of years specifically, we played a lot of Davis Cup matches and a couple extra tournaments this year to prepare for that Olympics in Paris. So I think we had a good bit of experience on our side, and that's an advantage we had over a lot of the guys in the field because there were some singles guys mixed in and just teams that don't normally play together. So any linkage you can have there is a huge advantage.
Yeah, you guys definitely had the chemistry, and it showed. I want to ask you about the match that everybody's kind of been talking about since.
Sure.
So, what was your headspace like going into playing Nadal and Alcaraz at Roland Garros?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's tough to explain, really put into words. I mean, obviously we're super nervous, but at the same time, I think we were quite confident in the game plan we had. I think having, a captain like Bob Bryan, and then Mike was there as well. So to have Bob and Mike in your corner, and Raj has said it several times, I've heard him talk about it, is those guys are just incredible. So when you ask, Bob or Mike, hey, what do you think about playing it all? Or and they're,
Mm.
usually you would think, oh yeah, we played him once in this, and they're like, oh yeah, we played him 9 times, and we beat him 9 times in a row, and like it's just an interesting
Yeah,
dynamic to have guys that have done everything that you're going to do times five. So,
right.
we had that experience in our corner, and I think our preparation was really good leading in, and then going onto the court. I really don't think there's any way to prepare for that atmosphere, especially as a doubles player. You don't necessarily play on the biggest courts all the time, and when you do, they're not always jam packed like it was for that match. And then to have like maybe four people in the stands cheering for you out of the
Yeah,
15,000 or whatever it was, is unique.
right.
And me personally, I actually really like that.
Yeah.
Kind of from college, the away match feeling is
Hmm.
is pretty cool. Obviously,
Hmm.
the Baylor Stadium's not quite the same as Philip Chatrier, but
Yeah.
it was a similar feeling where
Uh-huh.
every time you miss a ball, everyone goes bananas, and then if
Hmm.
you hit an incredible shot, you can literally hear a pin drop, except your little box
Yeah.
section there.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was a really cool experience, something that you definitely can never forget, and hard to really appreciate it at the time. That's for sure.
Yeah, the fans, and you're right. It takes you back to your college days, I would assume, where you're used to kind of more hostile environments, and they weren't necessarily hostile. They were just appreciative of this is Nadal's final run, and the
100%.
silent side was jarring when you guys would win a point. And also, too, on that same front, Austin, it's got to be the biggest challenge of the match, right? Is just staying in the match, not letting the emotions, not letting that out of body experience, that imposter syndrome happen, focusing on one point
Definitely.
at a time. Did you have like talks with regime before, or the Bryans, where okay, this is just how we're going to focus on tennis. This is how we're going to keep our head in it, because it was a straight set win, but there was a lot of opportunities for emotion to kind of get in the way.
Definitely. I think we started off really well.
Hmm.
Breaking that first game kind of gives you just lets you relax into the match a little bit and kind of build on it from there. So we played a
Hmm.
phenomenal first set, and put ourselves in a good position with a break kind of midway through the second there. And then,
Hmm.
I mean, as much as you talk about it before, it's just one of those things where experience, you can't really buy experience. So, you can say whatever you want to say
Hmm.
beforehand, but when you get to that last game and me
Hmm.
serving for the match, yeah, you kind of wake up and you get a little nervous. You start thinking a little bit ahead, and we did a good job of that the whole match of really staying within ourselves and playing each point kind of separately.
Yeah.
And then yeah, you double fault the first point of the game. I think I did, and when the crowd erupts after
Yeah.
that, you're like, okay, and then you miss the first serve the next point, and now you're like, I have to make this serve, or it's gonna go, ballistic, and then you can just kind of feel the momentum switching. So, was able to kind of recapture the focus there, and play a couple great points. And Rajiv, obviously being one of the best
Hmm.
service partners in the world,
Hmm.
was able to help me,
Hmm.
and got to the end, and we still saved
Hmm.
many great points there, and fortunately was able to come up with some
Yeah.
big serves at the end when it mattered. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie and say I wasn't nervous there at the end. That's for sure.
And that silence, I mean, it was it as deafening as it was on television?
Yeah,
On match point, you
it's
serve the ace in, and people
actually
didn't know
incredible.
how to react, and it was like, what happened? It looked in, the crowd's not reacting. No, it was in. Match is over.
Yeah, I would say even the silence on that second point when I double faulted and then I missed my first serve, when you're kind of bouncing the ball before the second
Mhm,
serve, the silence at that moment was
mhm,
really like, wow, this is a little bit creepy because you're just got
mhm.
like, 15,000 eyeballs on you and everybody wants you to miss a serve except three people.
Yeah,
It's a unique experience that you can't really put into
yeah,
words, even though you've hit, millions of serves. So I feel like that
mhm,
silence was almost even more deafening than at least match point. We're kind of up a point and
yeah,
it was kind of a weird feeling too, because when you make an ace and then you win, there's a lot of excitement, but then it's, completely the energy is kind of not there. So it was a weird experience,
yeah.
but yeah, it was really something special for sure.
We got more with Austin Krajicek here on Tennis Channel Inside In, Olympic silver medalist, former doubles world number one, and a member of Team USA's Davis Cup coming up in the finals November 19th to 24th here on Tennis Channel. Keeping it going after that Nadal and Alcaraz victory, you and Rajeev Ram win the silver medal. Unfortunately, not the gold from the all time perspective, but still, it's an Olympic silver medal. And there's never a better place, right, to finish second than the Olympics because you'll have a silver medal and it's going to resonate with people outside of the sport.
Definitely. I mean, it was very disappointing at the time. No question about that. I had another disappointing second place finish there on Philip Chatrier as well. So, it's not always easy, but reflecting on it after, I think we're extremely proud of that. To be able to win a medal is something you can never take away from you. And anytime we can represent our country and bring something home to make the United States proud is an honor. So I mean, we are super proud of it. Obviously, not the one we wanted, but hopefully, LA we can get one more. So
Yeah, that's it's going to be here before we know it. And keeping going with kind of the preparation and getting ready for matches and for tennis. And I'm not going to say you're an aging athlete, but as someone that's been on tour for a while and a veteran, I'm sure there's a
mhm.
lot of prep time. And this is kind of to pull the curtain back, warming up, getting ready for a match, day of, day before. What type of stuff do you need to do to get your body ready to go to play at this elite level?
Sure. I mean, like you said, I'm not maybe on the old end, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
getting up there a little bit. So,
Mhm.
yeah, the little things. I think this year you start to notice some of the little nagging injuries that would be gone in a day or two.
Mhm.
Even just a couple years ago, linger a week, and then sometimes you'll get a little compensation thing where something hurts and it creates another problem. So you really do have to pay attention to that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I think, I mean, it all starts with how you eat, how you sleep. That's obviously a huge aspect of it. But we travel with a physio full time, so
Mhm.
that helps a ton. I mean, we do a ton
Mhm.
of stretching, a ton of mobility stuff before. Um, but I think really the preparation isn't just a day of it. It's a accumulation of the days and weeks leading up to it that really makes you able to compete in that moment. So
Takes a lot of work for sure. It's not just what we see on the court. And another thing I had to ask you about because I saw you were open about it, training with alpha beats to
yeah.
improve
Mhm.
brain performance. So I'm curious. I've never really dove into this topic. The EEG like headbands that I know I've seen
Mhm.
people use, and what's the process been like to use music and use these alpha beats to improve your mental capacity?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it really does help you in those big moments, like for example, that Nadal match. When you just get in the habit of being able to calm your brain activity down to a certain state, to an alpha state where you're just relaxed and completely in control. When you start messing with that, so that you have a feeling of where you're at, it
Mhm.
helps you in those big moments when you take a couple deep breaths and you kind of know what it takes to get yourself in that state. Obviously, on a big stage like that, it's a little bit more difficult than sitting on the couch at home, but the more you do it, the more of a habit you build up for that. And I love the fact that alpha beats can use music to make it a little bit more user friendly and cool. I've used some other meditation things in the past where it's
Mhm.
it's just a different style, and I feel like when you can complement, for me personally, country
Mhm.
music that you really like,
Yeah.
then it just makes it easier and more entertaining, and it helps you really connect to the training better. So that's what
Mhm.
makes it easier to implement in like a match situation as opposed to some of the others.
Yeah, there's no sport that needs or can use more, focus on the brain and the mental side of things than tennis from what you've seen. And I think
Absolutely.
we've talked about it too. It's right. It's the time between points where you
Hmm.
have time for your mind to wander, for it to kind of spaz out and realize what's happening. So any way to help your focus like Alpha Beats does is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tremendous. I mean, golf obviously is a difficult sport as well with the mental side, and you're out there alone. But I mean, that's where the battle's won. You see these greats like Rafa,
Mhm.
and Carlos and Novak, and these guys are just absolutely insanely good at that. And managing the tempo and the in between point stuff is what makes them absolute legends.
Got to mention too, though. I mean, I mentioned it before, but you're a sponsor athlete of Lotto. They've been a loyal sponsor to you, and I know that the gear has never been an issue, which is huge, and especially the
Definitely.
footwear. We're seeing the growing roster too, right? We're seeing them get into other sports, and the footwear for the casual off-court look is good. So it's nice to know, Austin, that you have someone as a loyal sponsor to you, and that they've done right by you, and they're growing their brand and outreach into other sports. So it's kind of be on the ground floor of this like explosion in the Lotto realm.
It is, yeah. Our partnership, or my partnership with Lotto,
Mhm.
has been phenomenal for the last decade, really. When I was playing single still, so they're always on top of it. Probably the most professional company that I've worked with, and some of the footwear now too is really cool that it's expanding, so that stuff you can wear to dinner, not just on the track or obviously on the court as well, but expanding in many ways, and I'm super happy to be a part of the family there.
So as we focus more on the American side of things before we get to the Davis Cup, I do want to mention as well. We saw another American last year, this year actually, make a run. Jesse Pagula, someone that you made the finals of the mixed doubles with not too long ago. She has her breakthrough. What was it like to see her? I know everyone speaks highly of her, deservedly so. She's put a lot of time in, but to finally see that breakthrough from the American tennis side, I know it's like a fraternity of American players. What was it like to see her finally have her much deserved moment in New York?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Like you said, it's a little bit of a fraternity-ish. I mean, you're really supporting all of the your fellow Americans, and to get to know Jesse in Tokyo, actually at the Olympics there, and become friends. And we started playing some mixed after that. It's just cool to see a great person that works as hard as she does and is as humble as she is, to have the success that she deserves. I mean, she's been putting in the work like like she was a top five player for many many years now. So to see that come to fruition, it's totally
Mhm.
well deserved, and I'm sure she's going to have significant more
Mhm.
success as we move forward into 2025. But it's really cool to see.
Right. There's another like lesson in there that patience is maybe the hardest thing to realize with tennis, where you feel like you're doing all the right things. You might just have a bad draw. You might have, like you said, some nagging injury or something, and you might not see the results right away. Just staying the course is so hard, but ultimately can lead to some of the best success.
It can, yeah. I mean, it's really perseverance is the name of the game in tennis. I think it's annoying in a lot of ways because it's a very
Hmm.
delayed gratification sport. So you could be doing all the right things, playing great. I mean, we've had a lot of those moments in the last couple of years where you feel like things are falling into place, and then you just have a couple shocker results, and you just never know with
Yeah.
how hard you work. And that's something that I think on the outside is really hard to tell. Even people that are close to you, they don't really see the day-to-day stuff, in how many little things are going right and going well, and it just takes one tournament, one good draw, like you said, to kind of click, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh yeah, they're playing great, and it's like,
Yeah.
you've been playing great for 2 years and
Yeah.
nothing's happened, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and it's yeah, it's a weird sport in
Mhm.
that regard where you really have to try to block out the
Mhm.
noise, and that's significantly easier said than done, to say the least.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, you can say that again. Noise blocking out is very, very tough. Now we got the Davis Cup coming up, though. The final that's 8 teams, bracket style. USA versus Australia in the first matchup. We'll see what happens after that. Should you guys advance, but this group is a special one. Roster I'm looking at: Fritz, Paul, Shelton, yourself, Rajeev Ram, Coach Bob Bryan. Some heavy hitters on this lineup, but as we know in all sports, right, it takes some time to come together. Not all great rosters do. Austin, how has this group came together and ultimately giving you guys a great chance to win this whole thing?
yeah, I mean, they really have. I think it starts with the leadership. So I mean,
Mhm.
with our captain Bob, I mean, what a tremendous guy, and what a role model for all of us to follow. I've been looking up to Bob and Mike since I was a kid. So to watch them at Davis Cup years and years ago in Delray, when I was 10 years old, and then now to be able to compete with Bob as our captain, it's is really something special. And I think all the guys respect that. So Taylor, Ben, Tommy, I mean, they're playing tremendous tennis right now. And then Rajiv and I are playing well. So I really think our team is plenty good enough to go over there and get the job done. And I think we put ourselves in a position that it's just time to go execute. But we're ready to go.
I know the format is much maligned and scrutinized in a lot of ways, but really just best of three. There's a lot riding on every single tie. How do you respond to that sort of pressure and knowing that it is just every
It is.
match has such significance going into it?
Yeah, it's different than the traditional. I think it's going to shift a little bit next year to one
Yeah.
more home and away tie.
Hmm.
Obviously, that was kind of where Davis Cup had a lot of its allure over the years, is to have the home and away feel, um, and then the multiple days of the event. But this does make it the pressure significantly more.
Yeah.
And it's cool for us. It makes doubles extremely important because it can come
Yeah.
down to that, the last match. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's a ton of pressure there. But like we said earlier, there's a ton of pressure, every tournament you play.
Yeah.
So I mean, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, you gotta make one more shot than the other team, and that's really all you can do.
Well, if it comes down to doubles, you do have history with the Aussies, so there could be a
Yeah,
revenge. I don't want to say revenge; that's a strong word. Or maybe it's a sequel that goes the other way. But not that you're circling that. I know it's a respectful rivalry, but that could
we've
be
been waiting.
quite the
Been
follow up.
waiting since July. Yeah, so
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, we're not going to speculate on where this could go, but could have another run in with the Spaniards as well. This is it for Rafael Nadal, which adds a whole heightened, and we could say like energy, excitement, nerves, but Nadal's last event being when you're
Oh
playing, and
yeah.
I think the significance on that can't be lost either.
Oh, pretty cool. It's going to be amazing, and if we get a chance to play him again, I'm sure he's probably maybe eyeing that one as well if he gets to look at it. But we'll be ready. That's for sure.
Yeah. The U.S. hasn't had the Davis Cup in quite some time. I know how important it is. I actually, just another note on this, a couple weeks ago now, I talked to Dean Goldfine, whose patriotism is
Yes,
unmatched, and he was very excited about not only your group, but the chance to get this cup back. It's something a lot of players have circled, and it's cool to see people that have accomplished a lot, have a lot, and have a lot going on, that this matters so much to them.
absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the biggest goals of our year. So I mean, Paris was obviously a big one this year, and Davis Cup was right there in line with that. So
Well, we're certainly rooting for you as well as the Americans are unbiasedly. Got to have national pride here. But Austin, before I let you go, this is fun here on Tennis Channel Inside In. What plans do you have for your shortened off season? Don't have a lot of time, and there's work to be done. But when you get to unplug, any plans? Any fishing, golf? I think bourbon was the last time we talked.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
I've got a few bottles over there waiting to be opened. We're actually up in our little spot in Oklahoma now, so yeah, we can shoot a few shoot my bow a little bit and kind of be outside and
Mhm.
away from the city a bit. So yeah, just refreshing, and then we really don't have that much time. We've got about a
Yeah.
week maybe of that, and then it's back to work and just a little bit of time before we head back down to Australia. So
Yeah, there's a pretty big, I don't know if it overlaps. I don't have the date in front of me, but there's a pretty big college football game. A rivalry's picking
there
back
is
up. I don't know if that's on the
there
radar
is.
as well.
That may be, yeah, that ticket is one of the hardest that
Yeah,
I've tried to get, but we'll kind of see how the family play how it plays out with
yeah,
Thanksgiving and stuff. But
yeah.
regardless of where we are, we will absolutely be watching
That's Texas A&M in Texas for those out there listening or watching.
and sawing
Heated
them off. So
rivals. Heated rivals, I think
absolutely,
is safe to say, and they hadn't played in a while, so this has got new stakes, a lot riding on that too. So, Austin, final thing before I let you go, this was fun. Goals, plans for 2025, just stuff you might be working on or things you might want to accomplish next season.
yeah, we've got huge goals.
Mhm,
We'll be playing with Rajiv next season, so I think we can
mhm,
do a lot of great things. Our goal is to win big tournaments, win slams, and get back towards the top. So we're going to start off, full steam ahead in Australia and bring our best tennis and see where the season takes us.
Can't wait to follow along. That's Austin Krajicek, former doubles world number one, Olympic silver medalist, a member of Team USA in the Davis Cup final, Malaga, Spain, November 19th to 24th on Tennis Channel. They got the Aussies in round one, so we'll see where that goes. Austin Krajicek, always a pleasure. We'll have to do this again soon. Thanks for coming on Tennis Channel Inside In.
Yes, sir. Thank you.